Hello everyone, Killer Shrew Fan here, and I'm currently going on a week since last leaving my house. It's fine. I'm fine. This is fine. Before the cabin fever completely takes me over though, I wanted to share my thoughts on this, the PNSO Amargasaurus named Lucio. Another from their 2019 lineup that just absolutely spoiled us with so many wonderful and long-awaited dinosaur models. This Amargasaurus is the last of the 2019 lineup I plan to get, and I've already reviewed all the other ones I bought, so the big question is, how does Lucio here compare? Well, we're going to find out right here and right now on Killer Shrew Fan's Killer Toy Reviews. No box with this guy, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into the figure itself. Before we begin though, I want to let you know to stay tuned to the end of this video for some bonus content, but with that out of the way, I think it's time to do this. Before we get to Lucio himself, we need to talk about his base, and as you can see, this is sort of an anything goes kind of design here. There are so many different textures, from rocks to tree trunks to moss to cracked dry earth surrounded by dark running mud for some reason, all built up on layers of gray rocks. You can also see you've got some footprints where Lucio is meant to stand, pressed into the wet mud. Unfortunately, this is probably the weakest offering in terms of bases that I have seen from PNSO thus far. There's a bit too much going on, and there's such a bizarre disparity between the elements. Like, why do we have this dry, cracked earth next to what I presume to be wet mud, given that it's a dark coloration? It's just a mishmash of various elements, and I wish PNSO had focused on one. Even the way it's painted feels very basic and unappealing. I think if they wanted to go for this wet mud look, they could have at least put a bit of gloss in those areas to sell the feel of moisture. But it's ultimately whatever. It's not the centerpiece, it's just something to stand your dinosaur on, and you can see that there are no pegs or anything. You just kind of guide Lucio's feet into the indentations and he stands no problem. That is until you try to move him, then he'll tumble. Taking a look at Lucio himself, you can see he's quite excited to be on camera, so much so that he is showing us a nice toothy grin. I do wish there was a bit more definition to those peg-like teeth. Some extra paint in there really would have made that area pop, but as is, it's kinda just lost in the coloration, which is unfortunate that such an interesting sculptural moment would be so poorly defined. The eye of Lucio is in jet black color with some nice gloss added to give some life to it. I think this is the only model in their museum line that doesn't have a more detailed eye. All of the carnivores came with brightly colored irises, but Lucio kinda got the short end of the stick with that one. You can see the iconic spines of Amargasaurus have been beautifully addressed on this model, and that PNSO decided to split the difference between Safari Limited's and Papo's offering of the species by sculpting in the neck sails that go about halfway up those exposed spines. The neck also has that sort of boxy sauropod build to it, and you can see the detail on this model is really quite wonderful, with scales of similar sizes adorning the entire surface area. Once we hit the midsection, there are some lovely areas of buckling, sagging skin around the limbs and gut that work to add a real weight to this model. We've also got some larger raised circular scales polka dotting the midsection, and you can see the spines continue in their line of two just until over the hip, where they converge into a single line of spikes that run down the length of the very whip-like tail. There's just a glorious amount of sculptural detail on this thing, and all of it looks so believable and naturalistic, and I absolutely love it for that. Taking a look at the legs of this Amargasaurus, you can see there is some lovely musculature to them, and the skin is all buckling and folding in areas you would expect it to be. Unfortunately, the feet are this model's biggest flaw, with the extremely bright white toe claws, some of which shouldn't even have paint on them at all. So yeah, definitely a bizarre and underwhelming choice on PNSO's part. The underbelly of Lucio features even more lovely sculpted detail, and you can really get a good sense of the sauropod neck from down here. The pectorals have been nicely sculpted, and you can see on Lucio's feet all of the copyright information, the logo, and the artist's signature, and I'm sure those raised sections don't do him any favors when he's trying to stand in those shallow footprint indentations, but that's fine. We gotta know where this thing comes from. Another point of interest with this model is the material. A lot of the piece seems to be molded in a very soft plastic, especially the spines and the tail. You can see those bend with no effort whatsoever, and even the stockier bits, like the legs, have some give to them. And that's all great. I mean, all it means is if this model were to take a tumble off the shelf, the most delicate of its extremities are not going to shatter into a million pieces. So I like PNSO's forethought on that front, and I think that's something that is worthy to call out. As far as Lucio's pose goes, it's nothing too out there. He's simply striding forward, neck craned over his left shoulder while his tail whips back behind him. It's a fluid, graceful, and believable stride that I really enjoy. It feels like there's an air of confidence to this dinosaur model, like he knows he's lovely and he doesn't mind you looking at him. That might sound silly, but you know, sometimes models have a way of speaking to you, and this one does. As far as the paint scheme goes, it is lovely. I don't think I like it as much as the prototype image that found its way online a while back, and there is once again a great disparity between the box art and the final product, something that a few PNSO models seem to suffer from. But that being said, what we got is still definitely commendable, with a few minor areas of exception. You can see that he is mostly covered in earthy tones, with a tan midsection patterned by camo green markings that are rimmed with forest green stripes. The markings give me cuttlefish, or leopard frog, or even a bovine feel, and I think it works very well. The underbelly is a more cream color, but the big area of color would be the vibrant orange neck sail that transitions to a dark purple coloration closer to the tips. Another absolutely wonderful moment in this paint scheme is the iridescent dragonfly effect on the purple section of the sails. I absolutely adore that decision, and I would love to see this sort of paint used on other dinosaur models. It's beautiful to look at. It's not perfect, like I said. I really hate how the cream color of the underbelly has made its way up onto the midsection. It doesn't gradiate or anything, it's just painted on, and it's so garish and distracting. It feels more like a massive paint slop rather than a planned painted element. This problem of hard paint lines is also present on the neck coming up from the underbelly, and also with the neck sails themselves. It's better on the right side, but on the left, there is a hard cutoff from the orange to the green, and I wish there was just more of a transition that existed there. I've also kind of noticed that new paint wear seems to be appearing quite frequently, and I'm not sure if those are just areas I missed upon my initial inspection, or if I just looked at this model the wrong way so the paint wore down or something. So the durability of the paint is definitely something to be aware of. Beyond all that, I do think this model has a lovely paint scheme that is quite nicely applied, for the most part. As far as the size of Lucio goes, he measures in at roughly 14 inches long, or 35.5 centimeters from tip of tail to tip of snout, and stands at around 5 inches off the ground, or just under 13 centimeters. So certainly one of the larger Amargas in my collection. You can see Lucio here with the massive Safari Limited Amargasaurus, and even though he doesn't quite rival that beast in terms of length, and can only compete with his height when stood on the base, what he lacks in the size department, he more than makes up for in visual appeal. Next up for size comparison, here is Lucio next to the Carnegie Amargasaurus, the former favorite model of this species in my collection, and you can see it is dwarfed by Lucio, but could potentially work as a juvenile if you wanted to stand them next to each other. And finally, for Amargasaurus comparisons, boy, this one just makes you want to cry, doesn't it? Here is the raging dumpster fire that is the Papo Amargasaurus compared to the offering from PNSO. This PNSO dinosaur feels more Papo than Papo's offering, and it's more in line with what I would have hoped Papo would have given us. Instead, PNSO came in clutch, and this model feels like someone just sprayed a can of Febreze all over the smelly pile Papo passed off as an Amargasaurus. And for a final comparison, here it is next to a fellow PNSO dinosaur, and one that Lucio probably knows all too well. It's Lucas, the Giganotosaurus, and I have to say these two size up quite nicely with each other and play off of each other very well. It's a bit hard to tell with Lucas obscuring the view, but if I put them more head on, you can get a better idea of the size between the two, and I think it's fantastic seeing them side by side. Definitely cool to have these two South American dinosaurs with each other. I made the comment in Lucas's review that it actually looks like he's standing over the remains of an Amargasaurus on that base, so the two make a great companion piece to each other. So there you have it, guys. That is going to do it for our look at Lucio the Amargasaurus by PNSO. I think it's safe to say this is the best model of the species in my collection, and it's great to finally have such a wonderful rendition of my favorite sauropod. Really, the issues that I have with this model itself are more nitpicks than legitimate concerns, and if the base is really the worst thing about this set, then I think we're in pretty good shape. That being said, I cannot ignore these issues and say this Amargasaurus is dynamite, and I think it's more fair to say that I simply do dig Lucio. But as always, I want to know what you guys think. Do you own him yet? Are you planning to pick him up? What's your favorite model of Amargasaurus? Leave all your thoughts down below. I love reading through them. Before you go, now that I've taken a look at all the PNSO dinosaurs I plan to buy during the 2019 lineup, it seems some final thoughts are in order. PNSO really came back strong with this new lineup, delivering some of the best dinosaur models of the decade in 1 year alone, many of which have become some of the greatest my collection has to offer. After such a banner year, the company has become one of my favorite brands of dinosaur model producers, and I cannot wait to see what it is they do next. But if you were looking to get into collecting PNSO and don't know where to start, here is my lightning round ranking of their 2019 dinosaurs. At the bottom of the barrel, we have Bieber the Stegosaurus. Not a bad figure and quite affordable, but certainly the blandest of the bunch. Just above him, Duke the Spinops. Again, an affordable and charming little figure that perhaps was never meant to be compared to the higher-end museum line, but looking at 2019 as a whole, these two little guys just can't compete with the bigger boys. In 6th place, Sem the Spinosaurus. His size is impressive and his sculptural details are incredible, but his paint scheme is easily the most bland of the bunch, and his bizarrely narrow frame is a bit off-putting. The base is one of the best of the bunch, though. Coming in at number 5, it's today's subject, Lucio the Amargasaurus. Like I said, easily the best Amarga in my book, but not quite as good as some of the other figures from this year. Number 4 sees Lucas the Giganotosaurus. There were some strange decisions with this guy too, most notably the extreme shrink wrapping on the head. Ultimately though, it's the incredible detail and gorgeous paintwork that lands Lucas a higher spot on the list. Top 3, here we go. In 3rd place, we have 2 for the price of 1. It's Daeong and Jiaobai, the Yangchuanosaurus and Chungkingosaurus diorama set. The base isn't incredible, and these two aren't as sizable as some of the other offerings, but the fact that it is a diorama featuring 2 gorgeous dinosaurs gives it an edge. And Daeong's paintwork is some of the best to come out of 2019 from any brand. Number 2 was a tough call, but ultimately I decided to give it to Nick the Ceratosaurus. This model is incredible. Its size is awe-inspiring. The sculptural detail is immaculate, and the paint job maintains so many of the wonderful nuances from the promo images. This is easily a standout in my collection, and I cannot recommend it enough. And the best PNSO model from their 2019 lineup, in my humblest of opinions, goes to Seed the Ankylosaurus. This guy is the little engine that could. He may not be as big as some of the other PNSO models, but he still features a glorious level of sculptural details and a beautiful paint job. But the reason I chose to place him as the best from PNSO for 2019 is that he is among the cheapest of the bunch. I think I paid around like 25 bucks for him, which, to put that in perspective, Bieber runs about $20. So for an extra $5, Seed is the way to go, especially if you want a model that represents everything PNSO has to offer without breaking the bank. So there you have it, guys, my quick reflection on PNSO's 2019 dinosaur lineup. I hope that was helpful to anyone who wasn't sure where to start, and if you'd like to hear more in-depth thoughts on all of these models, check out my PNSO playlist. I will also link to the individual reviews in the description below. Hey, thanks for tuning in for today's review, and thanks for sticking with me to the end. Stay healthy out there. You'll be hearing from me again soon enough. Bye-bye now.